to the Mars Mindset Podcast, where we talk about personal development, psychology, preparing for the future, and so much more. My name is Patrick Butler, and today we have an incredible conversation to share with you. I just had the opportunity to speak with a man named Grant Botma. Grant, he's the man. He's a great entrepreneur. He is the owner of a company called Stewardship. Stewardship sort of has 4 branches with mortgage, insurance, financial planning services, and his mission with Stewardship is to love people through finance. And we talk in this episode a lot about his mission, about how he sort of found himself on this path. We also talk about his books. He is also an author. He has a book. His first book was called The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck. His next book is called, the most recent book is called Work-Life Harmony. We talk a lot about sort of the employee experience and at his company and how that relates to a better customer experience on the other side and overall a more successful business. This and much more. I have a ton of respect for Grant as an entrepreneur and just with everything else he does and the way he lives his life. And I am sure you are going to enjoy this conversation. So please, without further delay, enjoy this episode with Grant Botma. Hey, Grant, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, happy to be on, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
So for the audience out there who maybe is not familiar with your amazing work just yet, would you mind telling them a little bit about yourself, your background, and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So I own a company called Stewardship. It's actually a group of 4 different companies. It's a mortgage brokerage, an insurance agency, an investment management firm, and financial planning firm. And what we like to communicate to our company is we help people with home loans, insurance, and investments with wisdom and love. So we try to do finances in a very different way. And that is the company that we have. We won Inc. 5000 fastest growing company in America 2 years in a row. And we are one of the nation's fastest 100 financial growing companies. And then I recently just had my second book published that came out as an Amazon #1 bestseller. So I'm pumped and excited about how that launch went.
Incredible. What's the name of that book?
It is called Work-Life Harmony: How to Enjoy Your Family and Work More because of, not in spite of, your work.
So I'm curious to hear the origin story of that book, but also your company. And I will just right now commend you for that success. That's amazing. I think few people understand how big of an accomplishment it is to be on that Inc. 5000 list, and to hit it multiple years in a row is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks, man. To be honest with you, all credit goes to my team. I have an amazing group of people that I get to pursue this mission that we're on, to love people through finances. And they believe in that mission. They work hard together on that mission, and they're very hardworking, very intelligent, and they serve well, man. So as a result, we've had some success because of them.
It's always the team. I'm with you, man. It's amazing what having the right group of people around you can do and the amount of impact that you can have.
No, for sure.
I'm curious about the origins of that company, though. You know, there's so many different places you could put yourself. There's so many different industries to dive into, especially as an entrepreneur. You know, you kind of have your pick of what interests you, what do you find valuable, what can you get up in the morning and dedicate yourself to each and every day through the good stuff, the bad stuff. Why did you choose this array of businesses, this industry?
Yeah, so I actually don't like mortgages or insurance, and I'm not sure I really want to hang out with the guy who's passionate about those topics. The reality of my upbringing, though, I was able to experience how finances can make a big impact on someone's life. Finances can really hurt someone's life, hurt the impact that they're able to make on the world, but can also uplift someone's ability to make an even bigger impact on the world. So I wanted to create a place where finances were not going to be a source of frustration, but a source of enhancement in somebody's life. So I started my financial career at 15 years old. There was like this the credit card company, Discover Card, that had a job fair at my high school. And naturally, I went into that job fair to get out of class, of course. So when that job fair went down, they like asked some weird questions and they had me do this like mock phone interview. And I guess they liked it enough, and they left a message for my dad on the answering machine when I got home, asking for permission to hire me because I was kind of underage. I was only 15 at the time. And when I was 15 years old, I actually had some success as a credit card collector working for Discover Card, because I did the opposite of what they taught me. They taught us to kind of, use threatening tactics and pressure to say, hey, you're late, pay or else type stuff. And that just wasn't my vibe and not my thing. And I was also 15 and had a high-pitched voice as a boy, and I was just a kid, man. So I just kind of thought through it and like, if somebody's past due on a credit card, they've got to be past due on lots of stuff, and something's probably happening in their life. So I just never would ask for money in the first phone call, and would just say, hey, you're past due, you know that. What's going on? And I just listen, and I'd take notes. And then on the second phone call, I would bring up those notes and I would talk about those notes. Like, hey, have you found the job yet? Or, hey, is your leg healed yet? Or how's your grandma doing? Or whatever the thing was. And I would build a relationship with these people. And the next thing I know, my inbound line is just ringing off the hook. And it's because when they did get money, who's the guy they wanted to call back and pay first? Maybe not American Express or whoever else they were past due on, but they called me. And it allowed me to have some success in that world, and those relationships, those phone calls, just hearing some of those people's stories. Again, it gave me insight as to how important money is. And man, if you can handle money well and you can serve people well with selflessness in the financial sector, it's a big deal, and it can make a big impact on people's life. And that's really what I'm passionate about, is just loving people and making sure people get taken care of. And finances is a way to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. What an awesome experience at an early age to have that kind of impression on you about, sort of the power that financial institutions could have and the difference they could have if they sort of approach things differently. That's so unique, interesting. What was it from there? Like having that experience, I could see definitely planted some seeds in you, but what is it from there? How did that grow into the entrepreneurial spirit to start a business and to, take that approach with you there?
Yeah. So my success as a credit card collector had me being recruited in a number of different things, and was working from other collection companies, and eventually landed as a 19-year-old into the mortgage industry. And this was just after 9/11, and a few months after 9/11, mortgage interest rates went way, way down. So it was super easy to have some success in the mortgage world as a result of that. But something that I was experiencing is my coworkers and other people in the mortgage industry, it was just natural and almost trained to look at somebody and look in their eyes and just do whatever you could to make as much money off of them as you could, even if that meant selling them a product or service that was not best for them. And I was just watching that happen over and over and over again. And the reason why these people were selling them that product or service that wasn't best for them was so they could get that extra commission or qualify for that trip to Cabo or make their Beamer payment. And then the next thing you know, you would see the same family come back into the office and need to refinance or whatever because they're getting a divorce or they're in more financial hardship, and that stuff could have been avoided if the mortgage that was set up for them the first time was the right one.
Wow.
So I just got angry about that, man. And I saw a need, and that's the heart of every single business. And the true heart of a good entrepreneur is you find a need and you fill it. A lot of people think that business is set up to create a profit. That's the purpose of business. No, profit is actually a response to the purpose. The purpose of every business is to serve somebody somewhere with a product or service. And if you do that really well, then you can earn profit. So I just saw this need. I wanted to fill it. And I believed I could fill it uniquely, that instead of looking into the eyes of the customer and trying to make as much money as I could, I put myself in the shoes of the customer and genuinely provide for them the financial service or product that's best for them.
It's an incredible value for them. That's awesome. I love that. And, any profits earned off that, if you're doing the right thing, it's well warranted. So just to get specific, what is it that you do differently at Stewardship that other entities do? I mean, is it cover everything from sort of your customer service approach to the way the loans are written, or like what kind of things are different?
Yeah, fundamentally, the way that the businesses are set up is they're all set up as independent brokerages, meaning we're not tied to one particular company and forced to sell one particular company's mortgage or insurance or investment product. We have the ability to find the right product for the customer based on their needs. Because the truth is, not one lender or one insurance company or one mutual fund can give everything to all people. They all have different specialties. So we have relationships with all these specialties and then match that specialty with the customer. So that's fundamentally how we're set up. But we also have a very different fee structure. So the example, and if I give is for this is the mortgage industry. It was common in the mortgage industry to charge a fee up front, what's known as an origination fee, but also to make money from the lender based on the interest rate sold to the client. So let's say, I'm just going to use even numbers because it's easy. The going interest rate on the mortgage is 5%, but I sell you an interest rate of 6%. Well, that's a margin and much more profit that the bank is now going to make. And behind the scenes, they say, hey, good job, Grant. Here's some extra commission for you for selling a higher rate than we needed. So it's common in the mortgage world to sell above market rates to earn extra profit. And I thought that was wrong. Like, why should somebody get a worse mortgage just because they're not good at negotiating or they don't know that truth about rates? So I created a mortgage company that has a flat fee structure and is completely transparent. And my mom gets the same mortgage as my next door neighbor and a stranger down the road that I've never met before. So we give everybody the exact same deal, no negotiation needed, and everything is flat and very transparent. And that was something that really helped us have a lot of success, not only in fundamentally how we're set up as companies to provide the best products and service available in the state, but how we charge in our fee structure as well.
That's incredible. Now, I imagine that when you're filling positions at your company, when you're hiring people at these different companies to, step in there, this could be different to them if they're coming from another place in the industry. And finding those people that are sort of down with what you're doing and sort of your approach to the customer experience, I can imagine that may be difficult at times. How do you choose the right people or find those people who understand where you're coming from and understand where your values are and instill those values? And they're not the kind of people that are just trying to pay their next Beamer payment or, trip to Cabo or whatever.
Yeah, super insightful question. So I actually put like this business plan together when I was in college while I was still working as a mortgage loan originator. And
Wow.
I presented it to my boss and he's like, wow, Grant, that's really cool. I think this will work, but if I do this, I won't make any money. So I can't do this. And that's when I said, well, fine. I was arrogant enough, to think that I could do it. And I started my own mortgage company with that business plan in mind. And to my boss's credit, he actually supported me and helped me, meaning pointed me in the right direction, told me what I needed to do to open my own company, which was really great of him. Well, then the recession hit and he had to close his doors on his mortgage company. And a lot of people from my coworkers from there heard that I had a mortgage company and then asked me if they could come work for me. And I would communicate to them like, I guess, but this is how we do things. And their response was like, oh yeah, that's cool. All right, well, we'll talk to you later. And nobody would want to come work for me because they were used to having a certain income. So how did I find people to come work for me? How do we have the team that we have now? It's not about money. I'm not going to hire somebody whose number one priority is finances. I believe that there is a motivational hierarchy and finances are not the end. And in most cases, people who really want finances really want a bunch of other things. We could talk about that hierarchy if you want, but I'm genuinely looking for people who want to be on mission with me, whose primary motivation is to make the world a better place, to serve, to care, to help other people, to know that when they come into the office, when they clock in, they clock out, that they're making a real impact on real people through the work that we're doing. I love hiring people that don't have any experience because they don't have any of the bad habits from other places that do business very different than us, which means it's a longer training process, which means it takes a little bit more time and even money to get people onboarded. But when you teach somebody how to do a thing, it helps a lot with retention. And there's a lot of value that they have in you as a leader and a boss because you taught them how to make money and you're giving them the opportunity to make money. But more importantly, you're teaching them how to make an impact on somebody's life in a brand new way. And now they get to do that with a team of other people every single day. So that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to find people who are passionate about helping people, on mission with people, who are selfless, love others. And those are the type of people that we hire.
Huge respect for you for upholding those values that you present to the world externally and preserving those internally, because I notice so many businesses, they preach this or that in their advertisements, but they don't actually uphold those values in their own company, within the ranks, within the structure, and all the way down to the hiring and training decisions that you make. So love that, man. That's awesome. I
Thanks.
do want to learn more about how you view the hierarchy of motivation and needs. Something that I've thought about quite a bit is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and
Hmm.
understanding sort of how that pyramid works and how people want the basics in life, and then acceptance in their group and so forth, until at the highest level there's self-actualization, there's doing work for the sake of work, for your own fulfillment. Tell me about your version of the hierarchy of motivation, sort of how you view that.
Yeah, and this is what I wrote my first book about. I think this is something that all people who are considering jumping into a career or jumping into a place of employment should consider these things that I write about in the book. And the motivation kind of has these 4 points. The fourth most motivating thing, and this is not just my opinion, these are statistics and things that are done from studies all over the place. I'm talking Deloitte, Harvard, Cal, Stanford, like all the things. They all basically come down to this, where money is the fourth most motivating thing. And the reason why it's motivating, because you need to make sure that people are paid enough, so that they can not just have their basic needs met, but everybody wants margin. So it's enough plus margin is really where money needs to be and how people are paid. And too often employers are trying to attract talent with money being the number one motivating thing.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with bringing on a team of people who are motivated by money first is that is inherently selfish in most cases. Now, the third most motivating thing, according to all these studies, is freedom. People want freedom. People want to be able to work at a place where they feel less enslaved. No one likes to go in 9 to 5 being told when they have to take their breaks and have no margin for an extra minute or two here or there. Nobody likes having all their keystrokes and browsers monitored by their employer. No one likes being micromanaged. People want to be able to use their creativity to do their job in their own way. And that's a huge thing that I had to learn through managing people, is that I have extensions of me, not versions of me. My team does not do home loans, insurance, or investments the exact same way I would, because they're not exactly me. They get to do things uniquely in their own creativity under my framework, right? So they're keeping the main things, but they still get to be themselves. But not only that, I try to have a place where a freedom is a big deal in how they go about their day, how they work, when they work, the tools they use. People want that autonomy, and people are motivated by that. No one likes to feel shackled by their employer. The second most motivating thing is affirmation. Freedom is important, but it's not all unicorns, gumdrops, and rainbows. We want to make sure that we're doing it right. So you have to give freedom with some guardrails, some bumpers on the bowling alley, if you will. Allow people to throw the ball down the alley as fast as they can, or how they want to, with spin or without spin, or throw it slowly if they want. But they want people to stand alongside them to make sure they're not going to step in any landmines or fall in any gutters. And you need to affirm people positively and negatively. No one likes to wait for a 90-day performance review to find out they're doing poorly. If somebody's doing bad on my team and they do something wrong, I tell them right away. Why? So they can make an improvement right away. That's how you would want it, Patrick, and that's how I'd want it too.
Absolutely.
And people like to be affirmed positively in multiple different ways. Shout outs publicly on social media is great for some privately in a letter that's handwritten, some every time you see one of their family members, going right to that family member and say, hey, did you know that so-and-so is so awesome at what they do here at work? And this is the value that they add to our community. And more importantly, here's the impact they made on this person's life when they did this thing last week. Like, that's the type of affirmation that people want. And the most important thing that people want, the number one motivating thing, is not just purpose, but something that I call a unified purpose. People want to make the world a better place, do something that's selfless, serve other people in a community of people, do it together with people. And as a result, build stronger relationships with the people that they're building that community with and that they're pursuing that purpose with. So simply put, most motivating thing, unified purpose, then affirmation, then autonomy or freedom, and then there's money.
So this is very unconventional compared to the way that most people would think. I think most people assume that corporate structures and guidelines are just set in stone. They are the way they are. And I love your approach here. It's sort of fresh without, it's a fresh take on how to run a business and how to create this structure, this setup for your employees in a way that ultimately should generate more fulfillment, better retention, happier people. They do a better job at their job, equals more revenue at the end of the day for the business. It's using this fresh approach in your philosophy to create a healthier, better, more stable company. I think that's amazing. Did you ever have pressure on the other end to be more conventional, or to, kind of go with the direction that most other companies go with these sort of decisions?
Yeah, I went to a small Bible college and double majored in Christian ministries and business administration, and all the business administration and management books basically teach the opposite of how I do things. And when I started my business from a management of people and company culture perspective, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a kid. So I was just doing what the book said, and it didn't work. Sure, I had my own mission and my own purpose that I wanted to do this in such a way that finances were going to be an enhancement to people's life instead of a deterrent. But I didn't properly communicate that mission intentionally, or give that mission to my team and celebrate that mission whenever we did it well. I didn't point everything to that unified purpose. And I did the 90-day performance review and had this checklist of things, and even talked about like setting goals that are just outside of what they can really do to try and push them as they teach in the business classes. And that didn't work either. It just created this pressure and stress instead of confidence. And we all now know that confidence is something that helps people perform better. And I didn't have that freedom. I had the micromanagement, mostly because of my own pride and selfishness, thinking that I'm the one who knows how to do it right, so you better do it the exact same way I do. And people didn't like working in that environment. And sadly, I had a pretty high performing employee. He was awesome, and he ended up leaving. And I was baffled as to why he left. And he ended up leaving not for more money. He ended up leaving to go be a missionary in Thailand to help fight the sex trafficking slave stuff that was going there. Like, what? Like, why would you do that? He had all the money he could with me. He had such a great life. Like, what was going on there? And it just forced me to dive into social science, into how people think, into what's going on. And I just uplifted and changed everything in the way that I manage people after diving in and studying that, and deciding that I wanted to be an expert in this.
That's incredible. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the way that you're running your business. Being on the Inc. 5000 list 2 years in a row, I think is a testament to your success. I'm sure there's many other metrics you could pull to show how this approach is working. I think that's amazing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs should consider implementing some of the same stuff here. What are, just to get specific, because this is amazing content here. I think it's new to me to talk to somebody who can explain this so well. So what are there specific things that you've implemented that you've seen success with, as far as doing performance reviews and having those affirmations, as far as allowing some degree of freedom without, too much freedom, or without just letting it, sort of, unchecking things, and same with, financial compensation, alignment, and then how do you build that community structure? I know that's a loaded 4 points worth diving into, but I think this kind of goes in two prongs, both for people who are considering, sort of an entrepreneurial venture for themselves, maybe find themselves in this kind of situation, but also for people that are looking prospectively from the outside at companies that they want to be a part of, perhaps identifying some of these things that may be more attractive to them, and understand that a company that embodies these kinds of values might be a great place to be a part of.
Yeah, a practical example I can give right away is I take the 90-day performance review and I turn it on its head. Look, we affirm people. We have a culture where we affirm people positively and negatively right away. If somebody does something great, we high five it and we celebrate it right away. If they do something wrong, we correct it right away, because that's what all of us want. But I still meet with my employees every 90 days, but instead of me telling them what they did right and what they did wrong, because we're already doing that real time, and we do that with not just like high fives and attaboys, but in our Microsoft Teams chats, through gifts and fun stuff, through actually giving them other compensation type stuff, to their compensation that's on their paycheck, to celebrating them publicly, to all kinds of different ways that we affirm people, and we do it real time, to dashboards that have data based on the work that they're doing that show the good and the bad things they're doing. But every 90 days, I pursue my team and I do what's called an employer review, where they review me. And in these, I'm asking them how they're feeling about their job. What do they like? What's working, what's not working? Do they feel like they're on a mission, unified with other people, and they're making a real impact? And this mission that we say that we're on, of loving people through finances, how is stewardship doing with that? Can we be doing something different or better? And I'm really, again, just pursuing them, so that when they ask the question, does my boss, manager, or leader care about me? They can absolutely 100% positively say, yes, Grant does. And one of the things that they can point to is this employer review, where I give them the right to be heard, and I listen well, but I pursue them and I ask them questions. And that's super important. I also think that there's other things that can be done in affirmations. I think that leaders need to be, as people say, visionaries, and they need to have a vision. But I like to say the best leaders are listenaries. They listen really well. And one of the things that you can do to listen well is to schedule time to do that. So I'm intentional. I think that the best intentions require intentional actions, and I have intentional actions in my calendar that I'm going to listen for how my team is doing. Both positive and negative affirmations. I'm going to schedule time intentionally to give those high fives, to say attaboy, to cheer on them, and to help them pursue the mission better. All those things are super important, but I'm also intentional with putting myself in my team's shoes and asking the question, what about my job lacks freedom? What about my day-to-day tasks, how I do my job, how I talk about my job, how I think about my job, is something that does not have freedom in it? And what adjustments can I make, even if it might cost me, to give them more of that freedom? And these are intentional things that I'm doing on a consistent basis to make sure that I can continually add the types of freedoms that are important and needed, add the types of affirmations that are important and needed, but also make sure everything is pointed to the purpose.
Love it. That's amazing. I think those are great examples. And I want to implement those myself in my business and try them out. I think that's awesome. I want to ask you next about your latest book, Work-Life Harmony. So where, we've been talking a lot about sort of this employee experience, and I believe this book is very much related to that. What was sort of the founding, what motivated you to want to write a book about this subject? Start there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I was that kid who didn't like reading. I got headaches when I was a kid and just struggled with reading. So I never wanted to write a book, and never really enjoyed writing. But I was speaking at different events because we've won some awards. And when I was speaking at these events, people kept asking for more information and wanting more. And my assistant eventually said, Grant, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep going to these events and doing this thing. I said, yeah, but I want to keep helping people. So how can I do that? And she's like, oh, you should do an online course. And I'm like, what's an online course? So I did an online course that helps people build the company culture they want, with hiring, firing, meetings, employer reviews, all the things where people could just copy and paste what I do. And somebody from a publisher ended up taking that. And then they said, hey, you should write a book. I'm like, no, I don't want to write a book. And they're like, no, you don't understand. You need to be writing a book. And they kind of made me an offer that just I couldn't refuse, and it made more sense. And I had a blast. It was one of the funnest things I've ever done before, was write this book. And that was that first book. So then I just started writing down ideas for writing more books. And this would just happen to be the next idea that I wanted to implement with this book, with Work-Life Harmony. And here's the thing, Patrick, when I teach and when I write, I grow like crazy. Like there's no possible way that anybody could get more out of the books that I write than myself, because it challenges me. It makes me look in the mirror like crazy and helps me learn and grow in ways that I never would have before. So as a result, I really enjoy the process of writing a book. And The question that I got a lot of when I would come off of stage speaking was, Grant, you've got a mortgage company, insurance agency, investment management firm, you have a software company, but it seems like from social media, your family still likes you. Like, how do you do all that? The story kind of originates like this. I mean, my wife and I, we didn't have a choice. Or rather, we did make a choice, and it was a very intentional choice ahead of time. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he was injured in a medical accident when he was 11 years old, and his brain went without oxygen for an extended period of time. So he went out of a surgery that was a scheduled routine hernia surgery.
Wow.
He came out handicapped, completely different.
Wow.
And when I got to know my wife and their family, and Daniel, that's his name, he became one of my friends. And when I asked for permission to marry my wife, I also asked for permission to be his caretaker when the time came. And that was a thing that we committed to. So we knew that we had to put our life in a place that was going to allow us to not only do this work that's on this very important mission of loving people through finances, but also be there to be a caretaker. So we had to have work-life harmony. We had to. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to follow through on some of these commitments. So we intentionally have been, for the last 17 years, essentially, of our relationship, making and taking strides and steps to have a really great, work business, but an amazing home life as well, to ensure that we could be there to help and love and support Dan.
That's an amazing story. And I'm just down to the, kind of day to day of this, of creating that space. How, I think a lot of people, they get motivated by money and they want to do things like that, and they want to expand their career. And it could be other things as well. They want to expand their business because they just are excited about it and they get very sucked into it. It's their sort of driving force in life. And it can be challenging for people to even like stop themselves from putting that much time into things. And it's very easy to accidentally lose track of the amount of time that you're spending with your family. How, you had that commitment in your situation, but is there other things that allowed you to, understand how important that space is, or to intentionally create that space?
Yeah. So the difference between me and every other work-life balance book and thing that you're going to hear is this. Most people say to get work-life balance, just stop working so much. That's essentially the advice. I'm the complete opposite. I'm never going to tell you to stop working. I believe we were created to contribute. I believe that work is a very, very big deal. It's important. And that you, Patrick, are really good at your job and your work, and you too make an impact. The fundamental thing with every business is that somebody somewhere is being served. So why would I want to stop somebody from serving somebody in their business? I'm not going to tell people to stop working, but there's some very intentional things that you can do with your work and other things in your life to help have that harmony. And it starts with changing the goal. The goal isn't balance. So the cover of the book has the word balance crossed off intentionally, because most people have this goal of balance, but nobody can stay on balance 100% of the time forever. Even the guy who set the Guinness Book of World Record balancing on one leg eventually had to stop balancing and fell over, right? Balance is important, but it can't be the goal. The goal is harmony. Think music. Think a song that just sounds beautiful and everybody's on the same page together doing and performing this beautiful song. Harmony should be the goal. And that's where things start. And the big thing that I espouse in the book, beyond that paradigm shift from the goal of balance to harmony, is not trying to live multiple lives, not having a work life and a home life and running back and forth and having them war against each other for the rest of your life. Because you're going to fail, you're going to fall out of balance. And when you do, you feel shame, you feel alone, you feel like nobody understands this awesome work that you're doing, especially the people that care about you. And that's a travesty to me. So you have one life and you have one mission, and you invite the important people in your life into this mission. So my family knows what this mission is, and my work family knows what the mission is too. And we're all on this mission together. And you do very intentional things throughout your day, your week, your quarter, and your year to make sure these invitations are received and everybody's on the same page and you're pursuing this harmony together.
That's awesome. And I want to play a devil's advocate for a moment here and take the other side of, someone who finds themselves in a situation, maybe they're stuck doing a job, that they might not be thrilled with. Maybe they have to work more hours than they would prefer, maybe 12-hour days, working double shifts, different positions. What is the approach for somebody like that who, is sort of in a bind and unable to create that kind of space, or unable to, be on they're not on their mission that they really want to be on? It's like, how does someone kind of go from that position into a place where you've been able to achieve with sort of that harmony and that fulfillment on all ends?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between the person who is being overworked and the person who is choosing to work a lot. So the person that I'm speaking to in the book is the person that's choosing to work a lot because they like it and they're good at it and they have this business that's great. But the person that's being overworked and has to work double shifts and multiple jobs and all the things, they likely have to do that for various reasons. Maybe it's financially, maybe it's just a need or something else that's going on in their life. And I don't know enough about that person to tell them to stop working and to stop grinding and to stop going and get those things. But I also, having work-life harmony is not about saying, hey, your boss sucks, so stop working there. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of how tough or how hard your job is, again, the fundamental thing with every business is that somebody somewhere is being served. So no matter what your job is or how much you're working, you have to find that. There is that purpose. Sure, there's money and there's profit and there's a paycheck, but that is a reaction to the main thing, which is somebody somewhere is being served. So if you're showing up to work every day and you have no idea who's being served or whose life is being made better because of the work that you do, you have to do a heart check. It probably is a result of poor leadership because your leader or manager or boss doesn't do a great job of telling you about the awesome impact that's being made on real people somewhere down the line through what you're doing with your work. So sometimes you have to discover that yourself. But if you're showing up to work and you don't understand who's being served and why they're being served and why that's important, you've got to discover that first and foremost, or you won't have harmony in your work and life.
I agree. And to add to that, I would go as far as say, whatever situation you find yourself in, if you're in that kind of situation where you're just like working like crazy, you don't know who you're serving, figuring out how to integrate where you're at that day with your bigger mission, right? Like figuring out like it, the harmony is, it's not balanced. So sometimes you need to live an unbalanced life. And at times you might find yourself in that situation where you have to work extra hard to get yourself out of a certain situation or to put yourself ahead or whatever, and figuring out how to integrate where you are today into that grander vision. And that sort of leads me to my next question for you, Grant, which is, these many of the accomplishments don't just happen by accident, right? Like you don't hit goals by accident. Many things are intentional. You kind of need to know where you're going to get there. How do you have habits or routines circled around planning your future, and what does that look like?
Yeah, those are actually very intentional chapters in this book. There's a chapter on rhythms. There's a chapter on seasons. There's a chapter on efficiencies. And these are all things that are super important into having work-life harmony. And let's just start with the chapter of seasons. So with harmony, we're going to talk about music. In every song, if the lead singer is singing at the top of their lungs throughout the entire song, that's going to be a really hard song to sing and probably won't go very well. But in every great song, there are times where the lead singer takes a rest intentionally, and the other people in the band step up and there's a guitar solo or backup singer singing or something else like that. And all of that is intentionally designed with some sheet music. And that's important. And my sheet music is what I call my ideal year. And in my ideal year, I am not going to specifically put times and actual dates of things that are going to happen, but it's a plan for how me and my family want our year to be played out. And one of the things I have to understand in this ideal year is knowing my work seasons. When are things going to be super busy? When am I going to need a whole bunch of support from the backup singers? Right. And I can ask my family to sing a note, and they will because they love me, and they'll sing and they'll sing and they'll sing and they'll sing. But if they stop singing, I'm going to get mad. I'm like, why'd you stop singing? Well, you never told us how long to sing for, and we got tired. But if I say, hey, I'm going to ask you to sing a note, I need you to sing it for this long. And here's actually the note I need you to sing. Would you do that for me? They'll probably do it and do it really, really well now because expectations have been managed. And that's what this ideal year does. It's like, hey, look, I have this busy season. This is what's happening. But this busy season has a purpose. And this is how it plays out in the song. This is the real people that are being impacted in a positive way. These are the good things that are happening in the world because of this busy season. And you can be a part of that. And I'm excited for you to be a part of that. I actually need you to help me make that busy season be as impactful as possible. But when this busy season's over, we're going to celebrate together. So here's an example of something that I do. And please, if you hear this, don't feel like, oh man, I could never do that. Again, my wife and I have been working on this for 17 years, but I take a month off in my year twice. So
Wow.
I just got done with one of my months off. And I take a month off in March and a month off in September. And every time that month off is quote unquote off. So I'm doing some type of like project work where I'm stepping away from the day to day and working on some stuff at night. But during the day, I'm focusing in on my family. And I also work really, really hard without those months off. Like I'm the guy who grinds and goes, and sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning. And I love that. But I get support from my family during those busy seasons when I'm grinding because they know there's this months off seasons. But they also know that each kid does a birthday trip with daddy around their birthday. And my wife, we go on an anniversary trip and we do evaluations where we evaluate our year and our life and different things based on these 4 intentional questions that we ask ourselves. And these are the types of things that you put in this ideal year that help kind of make that harmony come to life.
That is incredible. That's awesome. I think that's very unique as well. And it's very much sort of in line with the metaphor you've been using for, like having that harmony and like singing at the right times. It's like creating that space, even so much as to create 2 full months of the year as free space to allow sort of that harmony to exist and not have it just be so one-sided. That's incredible. I have to ask you, I'm sure you judge your own personal performance pretty hard. When you started doing that, what did you notice?
Well, I'll just tell some recent stories. So not this past month off, but then last September when I took a month off, it didn't go well because I didn't plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was transitioning to having a new assistant, and she wasn't sure how to make sure I execute my busy season well to plan for that month off. And I didn't manage my wife's expectations or my kids' expectations well on that month off. And it didn't go as well, or it wasn't as impactful as it normally is, meaning a much deeper connection time with each person of my family during the day. And then me having the ability to complete a really amazing project or 2 at night after everybody goes to bed. That's kind of like the rhythm that I do in this month off. But this past month off, man, it went amazing. It went amazing because I set expectations, I planned for it, I worked up to it, and it went really well. So what does it really mean? Well, this is my first week back after my month off. And I have a wife who is unbelievably appreciative, who at dinner times is, when we're doing our family prayer at dinner time is thanking the Lord for the month off that I was able to have, and in front of my children, thanking for how hard I'm able to work and intentional I am so that we can have that month off. I have a deeper connection with each of my kids now and know different things about them. And I'm able to serve them better, parent them better, love them better because I know them a little bit better. But I also have returned back to the office with 2 projects completed that are going to move the business forward in a different direction. And everybody is like pumped up and excited. And there's this energy now in the office about these things that I was able to complete. And now we're going to integrate into what we're doing. So those are the results of a good month off and a bad month off.
I appreciate you sharing both sides of that story. That's awesome because, I think too often people will assume it goes one way or the other, and that's just the harsh reality is it doesn't always go that way.
Yeah.
A couple of things, just something that's sort of been circling in my mind, hearing you talk here and hearing a lot of your philosophy and approach to many of these different challenges that people face in life. One thing that sort of, and you just mentioned it more specifically there, is your wife being so supportive of this situation, and thank you God for the opportunity to have a month off and all those things. I need to ask you about that aspect of your life, picking the right partner. And how, it's like, first off, how did you find yourself? Did you know that you had the right partner with you from the beginning? How does that develop over time? And where do you see, how do you create a system for communication and improvement over time?
Yeah, so I don't believe that there is one like chosen person for each person. I believe God put us in this world of freedom and we have all kinds of amazing choices. And that's like just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So your question is extremely relevant because of that fact. There's a lot of choices in front of us of like who we should decide to partner with and who we should marry, and who you marry is an unbelievably important question that will shape the rest of your life. And it all comes down to that motivational hierarchy. I have this purpose that I believe I'm on. I was very confident in what my life purpose is, to love others. And I wanted to find somebody who had that same purpose and was willing to help make that purpose come to life better. And we just asked this question simply: if I marry her, am I going to be able to love others better or worse? And that was it. And to me, the more I got to know her and the more I got to figure things out and determine that she also is on that mission, we were both able to answer that question like, yes, we can make this mission come to life better if we get married. And the same was true for kids. It's like, okay, when do you have kids? Should you have kids? Well, do we be able to, we're going to love others better in life and make a bigger impact with our kids or without our kids? And we believe that we would. And that help us even understand when to stop having kids. Everything kind of points back to that mission. And our relationship is built on that mission. Our family knows what that mission is. You ask my kids and they'll kind of repeat back in a slow, drudgery way as a father sometimes preaches at their children. But I ask them, what is life about? And they'll say others. And I'll say, well, what do we do with others? And they say love. And proactively speaking, how do we love others? We speak truth, we speak life, and we're grateful. And those are three things that we do. So that's our mission. And those are kind of our character traits or action steps on how to make that mission come to life. And my partner, my wife, is unbelievably not only on mission with me, but she helps that mission come to life better. And that's the key.
Love it, man. That's great. Great answer. You focus around the same thing. It's those values, those core values to focus on, and questions that, if answered properly, then can easily guide your decision making.
And you're saying something, and I feel compelled to say this.
Sure.
One of my biggest frustrations is this statement of, well, that's just business. I hate that so much, and on so many levels. And the reason why I hate it is because what does that mean? You have the license to be some selfish jerk in your business world? And that's why people struggle with work-life harmony, because they're wearing different masks. They're different people in the office than they are at home, than they are at church, than they are on the golf course. Patrick, you could interview me or talk to me in any different environment, and I'm the exact same guy. If there's one thing that I want to urge your listeners to do, it's that. Live one life. Don't live multiple different lives with different masks. Sure, I use different language on the golf course than I do with my kids. That's just relationships. But I'm the same person that has the same mission, and I treat people the same way. And that makes my life so much easier. When people ask me that question of like, oh, how you do all the things with the business, but still have a great relationship with your family. How do you wear your faith on your sleeve in a business world? Like, to me, when I was first asked the question, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I just have this one life and I do the one thing. And I didn't know that was a novel idea. And the reality is, well, our society pushes us in so many different directions, and it's commonplace that it's just business and we have different lives. And I think that's wrong and makes life harder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Business is a really weird thing, especially these days, because there's so much conventional knowledge out there, and people tend to fall into sort of the well-worn paths without sort of taking a fresh look at it and saying, like, does this make sense at all? Which is the reason why, I love talking to entrepreneurs, because oftentimes you find the people that are doing really well have figured out how to break out of the mold of what they think a business should be and how it should operate. Something that myself and my business partners, we take a lot of pride in sort of our approach to our business, because we, similar to you, we are all about the the customer experience at the end of the day, making sure that it's an amazing thing no matter what. When we're going to interact with someone, like when you create a business, you're creating an entity, right? You're kind of creating something that is not a human, but it's going to live, and it's going to live beyond, it could live beyond you. It's going to interface with other people. And to your point, when people say, oh, it's just business, it's giving this excuse that the entity you've created, it's okay for that to essentially, excuse my language, be an asshole. And in reality, it should be an extension of your values, what you do in your business. There is no excuse for those entrepreneurs or those board members or executives that allow a company to operate sort of outside of their values. It's just plain wrong. And I think that's why, a lot of people have this negative perception about business in general. Like you mentioned earlier in this interview about how it's all about profits and exploiting people, and having that sort of approach. There could certainly be a history of that, unfortunately, but there is so much opportunity in the world today to create businesses that do the exact opposite. And I think you're an excellent example of that.
Yeah, I'm a self-described compassionate capitalist. I believe capitalism is beautiful and unbelievably amazing, especially when compassion is involved.
Absolutely, 1000%. I want to ask you a couple more things, if that's all right. One, I do want to ask you about your faith and wearing that outwardly, which I think we live in a very secular world today as well. It's this idea that, business should not, it's like business, government, education, everything must be completely separated from any sort of faith at all, which, there's something to be said about specific, like sort of leaning into specific religions as part of like statewide required thing, whatever, but I think there's a missing link here, or a gap in just having values that align with a faith that you subscribe to. What is that experience like for you to operate in the business world and be so outwardly and honest with what your beliefs are and what your faith is, and sharing it so lovingly, I could say?
Yeah. It's hard for me to live life and deny an intelligent designer somewhere. We're talking on an application called Zoom, recording a podcast with this unbelievable microphone setup that was created that's hosted on this crazy thing called the internet. Like, that is so intricate and so unbelievably intelligent, that has evolved unbelievable ways. Just looking at our society and look at how we operate. I mean, we're having thought right now and talking about faith. Like, just that alone, all of that is so intricate and so detailed that there's got to be an intelligent designer somewhere behind me, just for me to be able to engage in any of this stuff that I described. So when I went on that journey of like trying to figure out, okay, well, if that's all true, there's an intelligent designer somewhere, what's going on? And although I grew up in a Christian household, I didn't necessarily have a relationship with Jesus on my own, because it was religion. It wasn't a relationship. It was like, hey, here's all the things you have to do to work your way to Jesus. When the truth of what I read in scripture was like, no, these are the things that Jesus did to work his way to you. There's nothing you can do to earn your way to anything. And it's not a system of metrics or a rung of ladders that you have to work your way up. And that was just novel to me when I actually started reading the Bible on my own. And I started testing it, man. I was like, okay, this can't be true. And I just started doing stuff and testing it and researching. I'm like, wait, what? That's real? Like, huh? And one of the things that I read was, I'm like starting to believe this thing in the Bible, and I'm recognizing it. And I'm like, okay, let's try to make this simple. What's the most important thing in the Bible? Maybe, and what's the most important thing said by the most important person ever? Okay, so in the Bible, it's Jesus. That's the most important person. And the most important thing said, I'm like, okay, well, when would that be? Well, after he dies, and then he ascends into heaven after he rose from the grave, you would think that would be the most important thing said. Pat, if you knew that you were going to leave the earth in the next 30 seconds, you would probably say something extremely profound to me right now.
Right? I'll try.
Yeah, you would try. So in the Bible, the example of this is Jesus dies. He knows he's going to ascend in heaven and leave. The church has done a pretty good job in calling this the Great Commission. This is like a very focused thing, right? It's a very important thing. Well, then I think back to my 7th grade teacher. Her name is Miss Clump. parents. She had the beehive and the glasses, the wingtip and the whole thing. And she taught us how to break down sentences grammatically. And I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, I'm never going to use this. This is dumb. I would get whacked by the ruler from her so often because I was a rebellious little kid. And she taught me how to break down sentences. So I take the Great Commission and I'm trying to figure out what's the most important word and the most important thing said by the most important person. And the Great Commission says, go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's basically what the Great Commission is. That's the last thing he's telling us before he sends into heaven. So as I say that out loud, Patrick, what do you think is the most important word? Go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them all the things that I've basically taught you. What do you think is the most important word in all of that?
I lean towards teaching.
Teaching. Okay. Yeah. That's an action word. That's a thing that you go do, right? Sure. A lot of people say go, a lot of people say baptizing. Well, the way that sentences and language is formed, another proof of an intelligent design, which is a really good Jordan Peterson podcast that you should listen to. But the way that sentences are designed and language is designed, the subject is the most important word. It's not a sentence or a complete thought without the subject.
True.
Who are you teaching? Who are you going to? Who is being baptized? That's the word them. Them is the most important word said in the most important sentence by the most important person ever. So I'm like, okay, this is a big deal. And then I looked at Jesus's life, and even the Son of Man came to serve, not be served. And he gave his life as ransom for many. So I'm like, okay, if the most important word is them, and he loved them, I should probably do the same thing. And that's kind of where I came up with my mission. And it's so simple to me. And it's not easy to do. There's a difference between easy and simple, because every day I got to deny myself because I'm a selfish jerk who sins and just wants to do just for me all the time too. But when I deny myself and I do genuinely love them well, and I love others well, as I say in my mission, man, life is so much better. And the reason why he told me that is because he loves me. He cares about me. He created me. And he knows that if you do that, life's not going to be easier. It's going to be a whole lot more fulfilling.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that because, really for anybody listening, some people are not into religion for many reasons. And like personally, I grew up in like sort of a Catholic world where many people where I'm from are sort of in that denomination. And it's something that, like you said, it's like you understand it as a religion. You're like, oh man, like I it's like rules, another set of rules and regulations to live by.
Do the things or else.
Yes, do the things or else. And I think something that you mentioned there, like just in the beginning there is it's, intelligent design. So even people like, if I talk to someone that is, you can identify as an atheist or whatever, but I think if you just look at, you can sort of use whatever terms you want, but I think if you just look at the world in a scientific perspective or a religious perspective under a specific denomination or whatever, you're going to find that reoccurring theme of there's intelligent design, whether you interpret that as, sort of I don't want to use the wrong words here, but more of like a divine creation or subatomic particles and things like that. But you're going to find that that it's the same thing. And there's that intelligent design. And when you do the right things, you get the right rewards. And when you do the wrong things, usually you see that those don't pay off as well, which is just further evidence of, it's just there is something there. Like what comes up goes down. Like there are laws to nature, just as there are laws to living your life in the right way, no matter how you want to interpret it or what visuals or words or historical texts you want to use to illustrate that kind of knowledge and content, to each their own. But I think the points you've hit on are phenomenal and very true.
Yeah, I think it's foolish to deny intelligent design. That everybody can, I think, at some point agree with that. But everybody's on their own journey to discover who that intelligent designer is and what that means to them. And what I just shared with you is my journey of what I discovered, and what attracted me to that more than anything else was love. And for those that are like anti-religion, there's a very good chance they experience the opposite of love, and that typically happens when people are involved and they're not acting in a way that the intelligent designer has designed it. And I've been there too. I've been hurt and been unloved, if you will. And it sucks and it's hard to get over, but essentially that is what attracted me to Christianity and in a relationship with Jesus.
Love it, man. Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that again. All right. One last thing before we wrap up here. I need to know where you see the future of stewardship. Where are you trying, you have these amazing ideas, these values that you're sharing with the world. I'm really excited to share this with the world so that we continue to amplify these thoughts. But where do you see, the direction 10, 15, 20, 50 years in the future? Where would you like to find, your business, your influence, and, the way the world's operating?
Yeah, we're going to continue to love people through finances, through innovation, humility, transparency, and love. And practically speaking, I told you I just created a new thing coming back from my month off, and I'll just share with you guys what that is.
Cool.
So we do home loans, insurance, and investments. Well, one of the things that we have found is broken is when people are trying to buy a new house when they currently own another home. They have to sell their first home because they need the money from that for the down payment, and they can't qualify for 2 house payments at the same time. But then, like, if you have to sell your other home first and then move into another home, then you're like moving twice. So you got to live with like your in-laws or a hotel or something like that. Or you could use like one of these tech companies where like they buy your house from you and then you just live there and you rent it back from them. But those tech companies are buying your house from you at a discount because they have to make a profit when they sell it. So all the ways to upgrade to a new home, in my opinion, are broken. And we're creating the most seamless way to buy your next home without having to sell your current home first. And it allows people to get fair market value for their current home. It allows them early access to the equity that they have in their current home for down payment or upgrades so that they can stay living in their current home, do all the upgrades they want to the new home. And then when they're done and the dust is settled, they can just move in at their timing. And we're really excited about it. We beta tested it over this last month. And we've built a lot of really great relationships based on our track record and some capital that we've put together that is allowing us to create this really fun and awesome experience. And we're actually going to be launching this program on April 4th. So by the time people are listening to this, it'll be launched by then. And if anybody's interested in the state of Arizona, you can go to stewardship.pro/one move. We're calling it the Stewardship One Move.
Wow, that's incredible. And again, I appreciate your fresh take on an industry that's an old, beaten industry that has frankly, a bad reputation, and making it fresh and injecting love into it, if you will. So that's awesome. I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Thank you.
Grant, you've been amazing to talk to. I've learned a lot. I've really appreciated this conversation. I'm really excited to share with the world. It's really great stuff you're working on. Before we wrap up, is there any final words, piece of advice, anything you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, I just want to speak to you directly, Patrick. Are you married? Do you have a girlfriend?
I'm not married and currently don't have a girlfriend.
Okay. Who's somebody that's important in your life? Parents?
Yes.
Okay. Do they listen to this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to speak to them directly. What's their name?
Kathleen and Brian.
Okay. Kathleen and Brian. I am on podcasts a lot. I actually just had a podcast interview before this interview with Patrick. I want to tell you specifically, Kathleen and Brian, that Patrick is really good at this. This podcast interview was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And the questions that he asked were extremely insightful that allowed me to not only be the hero in the conversation, but to share what I think is the most valuable pieces of the information that I already have. And that's a very, very unique skill. So Pat's awesome at what he does. And I hope you find pride and joy in that, because I really enjoyed this podcast interview from a guy who does this kind of a lot.
Thank you, Grant. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, it was fun.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you.